Hey dudes, and welcome back to the Bantz. As always, I am your host, the Bantz. And once again, it's another beginning of the week for better or worse, but with that comes our first whiff of the week, so let's just get started. And first up, of course, we have our headlines for the day. And in our first headline of the day, Haider Ackermann is back in the news, this time reporting that he will also, alongside many others that have already joined this train, be showing a unisex collection at Paris Fashion Week Women's later this year. And really, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. I mean, how many brands have already jumped onto this unisex train? I mean, we have JW Anderson, and as much as I don't really like the brands, we have Balenciaga and Gucci, and just a whole bunch of others. If anything, nowadays, it's more surprising to hear that people will maintain a men's and women's fashion week separately. And personally, as much as I am against the idea of doing a unisex show for reasons I've talked about many times in the past, I do completely understand it from an industry level. I mean, the amount of pollution it causes, the amount of time and effort and money brands have to waste to do as many shows as they're already doing a year and then doubling that for both men's and women's. I totally get it, and it really makes perfect sense, even though personally, once again, it's not my forte. But at the very least, I am very happy to see Haider Ackermann being able to devote full time now to his eponymous label, now that he is no longer at Berluti, and I am very, very interested to see exactly what comes next now that he can put 100% of his effort into this next collection. And in our second headline of the day, we finally got our first look at the new Comme des Garçons line, CDG, and let's just talk about it. So let's start off first with the good news and the things we do know about the brand so far. So obviously it's much more pointed to being a streetwear brand, and you can definitely tell this by some of the collaborations they've already announced, some of which are pretty actually good. We have like Dreamland Syndicate, Cactus Plant Flea Market, Vans, and Braindead, just to name a few. And then of course we have some absolutely horrid ones as well. And on top of that, the price ranges for these products go anywhere from the high point being $800, which is obviously out of a lot of people's price ranges, but they go all the way down to $50 as well, which being able to own a CDG piece for $50 is rather mind-blowing if you ask me. But with all the niceties out of the way, let's obviously talk about the elephant in the room, and I really don't have any other way to describe this or say this than, what the fuck is this clothing? Like, I've talked about in the past how hard, how difficult it must be for Ray to be pushing out as much clothing as she already does. I mean, sure, she does have other people working for her, other designers, other pattern makers, things like that, but even so, this is completely unacceptable. Like, if I had to give this a description, it reminds me a lot of the Kim Jones re-releases, which, if you remember correctly, I said have not aged very well for the most part, mixed with this whole, once again, London rave revival, and it looks like it's marketed straight towards people that would just solely wear Vetements and Balenciaga, and basically anybody who considers themselves just a style or trend-humping whore. And the worst thing about it is those trend-humping whores are absolutely gonna eat this shit up. But even for as much as this whole first look just absolutely disgusts me for the most part, I am going to at least stay optimistic for the time being. One, because it is Comme des Garçons, and I do feel that Ray can definitely and probably will definitely do better with this line, even if this is not a really good showing. And two, because I'm still very interested in seeing how all these new collaborations turn out. I think even if she isn't able to maintain a really fantastic line, if the collaborations are at least good, and God knows there are plenty of streetwear brands to collaborate with nowadays, that might also be able to at least keep this brand afloat in my mind, at the very least. Alright, and now let's move on to our art stories for the day. And first up, Kidrobot just showed off one of their newest collections, this time dropping a bunch of dunnies based on works done by Jean-Michel Basquiat. So if you're a fan of his work or a fan of Kidrobot in general, then I would definitely check these out. Then JPS Gallery in Hong Kong showed off their newest exhibit titled Modern Art of Floating World, and it's actually pretty cool, honestly. They brought in a whole bunch of different artists using what I would consider classic historical Eastern Asian art styles, but then taking those styles and mixing them in with a bunch of different modern cultural references, and they came out pretty funny and pretty interesting overall. So if any of those ideas sound interesting to you, then I would definitely check these photos out as well. Then in a little bit of more interesting art news, two private art collectors that were avid fans of Kaws' work decided to open a new website called Kaws for Lease, where you can actually take some real Kaws pieces that they own and rent them for a short period of time. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the renting idea myself, but even so, it's a very interesting concept, especially if it catches on to even more famous artists and designers and people like that. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about this idea, then I would definitely check out this article as well. And lastly, Vhils is back once again with some more of his amazing portraits, but instead of using plexiglass overlaid as he did last time, this time we see him doing portraits made out of a slew of different mediums. And by that I mean we see him using brick and plaster and styrofoam and tile and a whole bunch of other different mediums. So if you are a fan of portrait work or maybe just the use of different mediums in art, definitely check this out as well. You won't be disappointed. Alright, and now moving back into fashion, Supreme is back once again, this time with a collaboration from Fox Racing, and once again, surprise, surprise, they actually did a fairly decent job. Yeah, I don't know, 2 fairly decent Supreme collaborations in a row, it's fucking frightening to me as well too. But then again, as I look over this collection a little bit more, I wonder if I can really say this is a decent job by Supreme. Because when you really look at this collection, it really just is Fox Racing pieces. And obviously they've been around for how long now? A couple decades. And of course their pieces are going to be solid. I mean, they're making supercross, motocross pieces. That's what they're known for. And just slapping a Supreme logo on it really doesn't make it much more of a collaboration than, well, I guess any other Supreme collaboration really. But Lord knows it's only a fucking matter of time before we see some fucking dumbasses as per usual just blowing up their Instagram or walking around wearing a fucking Supreme set of goggles or a fucking chest plate. Jesus fucking Christ. So let me take back what I said before. This is actually a good collection by Fox Racing and just another lazy attempt at a collaboration by Supreme. Then brand Carnival teamed up with Dragon Ball for our god knows millionth Dragon Ball collaboration we've seen in recent history, and holy shit, did they fuck this up. Now I'm only going to talk about this briefly because we all know I've talked about enough Dragon Ball capsule collections in the last couple months, and I'm personally sick of it, and I'm sure you are too. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is just because of how fucking bad the quality on these pieces is. Like seriously, look at this screen print. I mean, take a fucking good look at this screen print. It is so poorly done. Like, I've made this comparison before, but I have definitely seen better screen printing on Dragon Ball pieces out of Hot Topic than this. And look at this screen print. It's not even fucking straight. And maybe that's just because the sweatshirt isn't laid out correctly, but even so, if that's the case, why even put this photo in the lookbook? Either way, absolutely terrible idea. So yeah, Carnival Dragon Ball collection, don't buy it. Then Sasquatchfabrix showed off their newest Chillin' capsule collection, and it's definitely Sasquatchfabrix. The pieces here are super Japanese traditionally inspired, and that's of course what you'd expect from a Japanese brand. but then taking that idea and mixing in some of the color palette and the patterns and even the absolutely amazing jewelry accessories here really shows some of the stuff that Sasquatchfabrix is really capable of. Sure, it might not be wearable to everyone, but still, that doesn't make it any less fun to look at. Then, and unfortunately, I really didn't want to have to talk about this, but here we are. The Club 75 and Simpsons collaboration, it's just not good. Now, even for as much as a Club 75 fan as I am, it still doesn't make up for the fact that this collection was just done poorly. I mean, yes, some of the graphic placements are kind of interesting and some of the designs are kind of funny as well, like that Marge hair on the pant leg. Like, it is kind of humorous at first. But aside from that, the graphics here are just so fucking boring. And as if the boring graphics wasn't bad enough, there's like 3 fucking graphics total on top of that. Like, what the fuck, Sony? You are so much better than this. What happened? And that's really it. That's all I really gotta say. I'm just really fucking disappointed. Yeah. And lastly, and very quickly, let's just go over this Givenchy Resort collection, because it's absolutely shit. Like, really, what are these pants? And there's more than one time where I have to say that. And same goes for the tops. Like, what the fuck are these tops? They're so fucking ugly. And as if that wasn't bad enough, as much as I am a fan of cohesive designs, cohesive collections, there is absolutely fucking none of that here. Like, just take a look. Just take a fucking look at some of these outfits. What the fuck were they thinking? I don't understand. How can you run a luxury fashion house this poorly, get away with this shitty of a lookbook? I don't even fucking know anymore. And the funny thing is, this is me trying to be as non-biased as possible, because honestly, I'm not even a big fan of Givenchy anymore, but even so, this is just bad. So congratulations, Givenchy. You fucked up another collection. Alright, and with that now out of the way, let's move on to our articles for the day. And first up, Highsnobiety put out a decent article going over a little bit of a brief history of brand Bape and Ape, aka Bape. And they talk about Nigo a lot, and then a little bit about what he's done since, and kind of what else he's dabbled in. So if you're interested in Nigo or learning a little bit more about Bape, if you don't know a lot about Bape already, then I would check this out. Then Vhils came out with a very interesting article going over this idea of cost per wear, which if you don't know what it is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. Basically taking the price of an item and then dividing it into the amount of times you wear it to get your cost per wear. And they kind of open your eyes to the idea of how even though something might be more expensive, because of the quality and the way that it's produced, it will last you a lot longer, and its cost per wear will be actually much lower than something you might get from a mall store or especially a fast fashion store. So if you're interested in the idea, or maybe you're just interested in the environmental side of fashion and want to do as much as you can to minimalize it, or maybe you've always needed just kind of a guideline to go by when explaining it to people, definitely check this out. It definitely breaks it down and makes it easy to read. Then Grail did another one of their famous histories of, this time going over the history of Gore Tex. So if you're a fan of the material, or maybe you want to learn a little bit more about the brand, then I definitely check this out. And lastly, Racked put out a very, very nice article kind of going over the evolution of Vogue magazine and what Anna Wintour, even though she's no longer there, did to help modernize it and evolve it to the point it is today. And they really go into a lot of detail over the last couple of decades, and if you are a fan of fashion history, even if you're not the biggest fan of women's fashion, this is definitely worth checking out. It's a very insightful piece. Alright guys, and with that we come to the end of our first whiff for the week. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always, if you want to read any of the articles I talked about today or want to check out some more photos I wasn't able to include, I've linked everything in the description down below. And if this is your first video here, then welcome. We do these What's Happening in Fashion videos twice a week, every Monday and Friday. So if you're already a fan and want to see more, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, if you do have any questions or comments or concerns, or even just want to talk fashion in general, feel free to hit me up in the comments down below. I am always willing to talk fashion. And as always guys, thank you once again for watching these videos and supporting my content. I hope you guys have a good couple days off until I see you next, and as always, until next time.